Hey guys, this is ENDtv, and we're coming at you with another video, this time about the United Kingdom. And guess what? The UK hasn't been doing so good lately. Now, one of the biggest things that happened to the UK was Brexit. And as you know, like since Brexit, where there was, I think it was David Cameron, after him there was Theresa May. She reigned from, what a word. She was Prime Minister of the UK between 2016 and 2019. Then there was Boris Johnson from 2019 2022. Then there was Liz Truss. Like, what a shit show. That was just for 45 days in September 22. I mean, she was, I think she was Prime Minister for the fewest days of anyone, I think, or maybe second. And what's crazy is that she gets a pension from this every year. It just doesn't make sense, like for life. And then there was Rishi Sunak between October 22 and 24. And it's actually been pretty crazy. And if you remember about Brexit, people were unhappy about the EU.
You all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you? The main reason the United Kingdom voted the way that it did is you have, by stealth, by deception, without ever telling the truth to the British or the rest of the peoples of Europe, you have imposed upon them a political union.
In the UK, like the majority of people who voted Brexit, the voters were against the EU. Like, the reason for Brexit was because people felt that they were being screwed over from the EU Parliament. Like, you saw what the EU did to other countries. I mean, initially to Ireland, but more so to Portugal, to Italy, Spain, Greece. Like, the EU is sending these huge loans to these countries, and the EU is dictating what other countries should do. And the EU has gone to a point where it's expanding its geographical borders instead of looking for the interests of its own people. And everyone in the UK will have no doubt that Brexit was managed very poorly. So Brexit had terms as well, which was not communicated to the British people. And this was stuff like giving back, like there were terms that to leave the EU, that a leaving member would have to pay, I think, the EU like billions of pounds back then. And I don't think British people knew about this, but also the way it was done. For example, since the UK is out of the EU, what would be important to the UK would be to have partnerships with countries out of the EU. You know, for trade, for business. And this was not carried out well at all. And it seems that since then, whoever was Prime Minister since Brexit still has close ties with the EU. They still go to meetings together. They still have immigration. Well, not immigration, but there is immigration. You know, people working like back and forth. But what I meant to say is that there is trade. There is still trade with the EU, but there are tariffs. If you want to send a parcel to the UK or the UK to the rest of Europe, they have to pay a fee. They have to put extra documents on each envelope or parcel with what's inside. And now with Keir Starmer, there's something being implemented, which is another thing called like the national ID card. Like, so far, the UK didn't have an ID card like should I say the rest of Europe? I'm not going to say the rest of the EU because the UK isn't in the EU. But yeah, British people didn't have an ID card. They had a passport if they travel abroad. And to work, they had a separate number called a national insurance number, which is sort of like in the States, national security number. But the national insurance number might not be for healthcare, if I'm not mistaken, in the UK. But Keir Starmer wants to implement an ID card, and they have already started this procedure, and that is for biometrics. It's to control people. It's all in our own benefit. That's how it's sold to us, or to British people. So anyway, this video is more so about the UK. It's about Nigel Farage.
Fuck me. Just look at the size of it.
Thank you very much for that very warm welcome. Isn't it funny?
And let's just get into it. So British politics has gone completely upside down. I'm pretty sure everybody can agree with me. Not that long ago, Nigel Farage was the loud bloke shouting from the sidelines he was a protest vote, the man who gave us Brexit. And then he told us to jog on. But now he's back. And not just back, he's leading in polls and terrifying the old parties. Hello, geezer. The question everybody's whispering now is, could Nigel Farage actually become Prime Minister? Stick around, because by the end of this, you might start to think, yeah, maybe he could. A huge YouGov poll suggested that if there was an election tomorrow, Farage's party, Reform UK, could actually beat both Labour and the Conservatives, the Tories, not scrape through. They could actually win. For the first time ever, the Tories might not even be one of the top two parties. And Labour, they're watching their old heartlands, the North, Wales, well, the North as in Northern England, and Wales, which is on the West, swing away from them like never before. It's not just numbers, it's a political earthquake. It kind of reminds me that, in the States, like in the US, you get parts of the country that are predominantly for certain parties, or left or right wing or whatever. And this was kind of similar to the UK, where like in the States, I think you got Democrats, which were like in California, or maybe like in the city of New York, which is kind of similar to the UK, like London and like big like cities in the UK, but like in the countryside they vote differently. You might remember Farage has stood for Parliament 7 times and lost every single one. So how on earth does a bloke like that suddenly look like a future Prime Minister? Well, in 2025, Britain is a fed up Britain. People feel like politics doesn't listen anymore. Everything's gone up. Bills, rents, taxes, and yet life surely doesn't feel any better. Farage has tapped into that mood perfectly. He's positioned himself as the anti-system candidate, the I'll say what you want bloke down the pub who tells it straight. And for millions of voters, that's exactly what they want. YouGov actually found that almost half the country now sees Reform as the party driving the national conversation. That's wild. But here's the catch. Most of the same people don't trust him to actually run the country, so Farage's mission is now simple: prove he's not just the protest vote, he's a serious contender. If you want to see how fast Reform's rising, just look at what happened in Kent. In this year's local elections, they didn't just gain a few seats, they practically took over the whole council. Then came a by-election in Runcorn and Helsby, a solid Labour seat for decades. Reform nicked it by 6 votes. That tiny margin sent shockwaves through the parliament. If Labour's losing there, nowhere's safe. But success brought chaos. The Guardian later published a leaked video from a Reform-run council meeting. Shouting, insults, one councillor telling another just to effing suck it up. It showed something deeper. Reforms never had real power before, and running things is a lot harder than shouting from the sidelines. Farage's genius or madness, depending on who you ask, is that he'd turned frustration into a movement. He's made politics emotional again. It's no longer left versus right, it's insiders versus outsiders. Earlier this year, he even gave up his personal control over Reform UK, turning it into a member-owned party. That's clever. It makes him look less like a dictator, more like a man leading a grassroots revolution. But he's also carrying some baggage. The Guardian and Labour have been hammering him over old comments about Russia and media links. Still, controversy is oxygen for Farage. The more they attack, the louder he gets. Alright, picture it. Nigel Farage, Prime Minister. He walks up to number 10 Downing Street with a pint in hand grin. What happens next? First, immigration gets the biggest shake-up in modern times. He's already said he wants to scrap indefinite leave to remain and make every migrant reapply under stricter rules.
The anticipated cost of the 800,000 plus who will qualify for indefinite leave to remain over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, the anticipated cost of this group of people is a staggering £230 billion. It is absolutely an eye-watering sum of money. We will not only say that these people do not qualify for indefinite leave to remain, we will abolish indefinite leave to remain as a category in this country.
So that's pretty worrying for immigrants. Like, I don't know. I mean, if they're legal, like, that's fine. If they're not, I don't know, they should probably conform to rules. Second, he's promised a full crackdown on crime. I mean, tens of thousands of new police, new prisons, and deportations for foreign offenders. All of it funded by cutting big projects like HS2, which is the high-speed to railway, the trains, and parts of the net zero plan. Third, Farage wants to rip up certain financial regulations, shift power away from Financial Conduct Authority and give it back to the Bank of England. And foreign policy? Let's just say Brussels won't be sending him any Christmas cards. He's made it clear, no more dancing around the EU. Britain would go full independence mode, even pulling out of human rights treaties if that's what it takes to control borders. That's not tinkering, that's rewriting Britain's rulebook. But running the country isn't a pub debate. It's messy, it's paperwork, budgets, backroom deals. And as Bloomberg pointed out, Reform's big challenge is proving it can actually govern without falling apart. The Kent chaos wasn't a one-off. Reports keep popping up about infighting, bullying, councillors quitting. It's the kind of stuff that makes voters go, alright mate, but could you actually handle Downing Street? And it's not just Britain watching. Ireland's watching, bracing for the fallout if Farage does take power. The Irish Times warned it could reshape trade, the Northern Ireland broker, and even the Good Friday Agreement. So yeah, this story doesn't end at Dover. So where does that leave us? Nigel Farage has gone from the ultimate outsider to the man who could topple Britain's entire political order. For some, he's a breath of fresh air. For others, he's a ticking time bomb. But whichever side you're on, one thing's clear. This isn't just about Farage. It's about what happens when people stop believing the system works. And when that happens, anything and anyone can fill the gap. So, what do you reckon? Is Farage the future? Or is Britain about to learn the hard way that protest politics doesn't always survive power? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the breakdown, give it a like, subscribe, feel free to share, and stick around. Remember to hit that notification bell as well when you subscribe to stay tuned on our latest video releases. This was ENDtv. Take care. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in to ENDtv.